Hello and welcome to another episode of XRay.Tech. I'm your host, Tom Nasser, and today we are going to connect Hubspot to QuickBooks. Let's get into it. So really what we want to trigger is when a new deal moves into a new stage in Hubspot, we want to find the customer inside of QuickBooks and create the customer if they don't exist, and then we want to send them an invoice. So this automation is 6 steps long. And it's a little tricky, and this is the reason why I wanted to do this type of tutorial. So just looking at things here, it's going to be a new deal in a new stage. You'll notice that there are a ton of other options that HubSpot gives you, but let's focus on a new deal in a new stage right now. And really what we're looking at is making sure that this tutorial example deal is successfully in our tutorial trigger stage. So looks like we are, and we'll continue that. We'll select our account here, and now we're going to set up the trigger. So the deal pipeline needs to be the sales pipeline. Deal stage, again, the tutorial trigger stage. And this is the data that we get. So this is where it can get a little tricky because the way that HubSpot does IDs isn't exactly clear to somebody who might be looking at it for the first time. So there's a couple IDs that I want to point out. Associated VIDs. That is your contact. So the contact who's actually associated with this deal. Associated VIDs or VIDs are, this is the contact ID. So we're going to need to do a lookup step to figure out, that person's email, that person's name. And we have associated company ID. So again, a huge number. We're going to need to do a lookup here to actually figure out what's the name of the company. And you see that you have a whole bunch of metadata basically about the deal itself. Now we're not going to do anything really with this for the most part, except for the forecasted amount. This is the deal. This is the amount that we're going to use inside of the QuickBooks invoice. But we'll get to that way at the end, or probably amount. We'll use that instead. All right, so let's keep going here. So the first thing we need to do is find this contact. So we're going to find a contact and again, choose our action, choose our account. And this is the first search property name is the contact information, all vids for a contact. And the variable that we're going to insert here, so when you click on the first search property, you get all of the variables that were captured in the first step. And we're looking for the vids. So associated vids associated with this deal is 2901. So that's the associated vid that we put in here. Now the next part of this is this properties to retrieve down below. Now we want their email, we want their first name, and we want their last name. Those are the things that we need to get in order to create a QuickBooks customer and eventually send them an invoice. Now, if you didn't put this information here, properties to retrieve, you would just get a bunch of numbers back. It really wouldn't be very helpful for you. And this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this tutorial. Vids and contact name and email don't exactly mesh together in someone's mind for the first time you're looking at it. So I just want to point that out here. The properties to retrieve is key. And we also do not want to create the contact if we didn't already. This was the totally wrong circumstance to use that functionality. So let's keep going. And when we run that test, we see that we get my email right here, my first name and last name, and here it is. And was the search found? Yes, that is true. Then let's go into the company side. And the company side, again, pretty straightforward. I'll skip the first 2 steps here and we'll just set up this action. So we're looking for the company ID. And this is, you see the little 1 right here? That means this is the variable associated with step 1. So you see all of these steps, all these variables in here are associated with the first step. So we're going to use that deal, the company IDs that are associated with this deal, we're going to use it to find the company. And again, we're looking for the company name. That's the thing that we need. So we're going to continue there. And you see right here, we're actually going to retest this action and see what happens. So when we get our company back, you see the name is XRay.Tech. You see that it was found, right? It was true. And this is that ID that we searched by. So we'll keep going. So getting into QuickBooks, we want to do a search by email. Sometimes people do it by name. Email is a much more consistent variable to use because you know that some person only has one email. So we're going to look by that email that we found in step 2. Again, 2 dot, right, contact information email. And then we are going to check this box, create QuickBooks Online Customer if it doesn't exist yet. And when you do that, you get all of the associated variables inside of, or content fields inside of QuickBooks. So we're going to use our first name, space, last name for the full name here in QuickBooks. We're going to have the company name. We're going to have the email address. And really, that's all the information that we need right now. So we'll just continue on that and retest and review. And there we go. So we found that customer, and here it is. So Tom at XRay.Tech is now a new customer here, and then we're going to send that person an invoice. So this wasn't something I set up beforehand. So we're going to send them a new invoice. And if you want to, the way that you do invoicing, right, you can use a whole bunch of different ways. In this case, we'll just use the company ID just for now. And we'll use the email address again from step 2. So instead of send invoice, I messed up here. We're going into QuickBooks, and we need to create the invoice first. So we need to create the invoice first, and then send the invoice. So we're going to create the QuickBooks invoice right here. And the customer is going to be the customer that we found or created in step 4. There we go. I was like, wait a minute, we should have that data. So there we go. So customer ID is just 1 in this case. You do not need to put in the person's email address again if you put them inside of step 4. If not set, the customer's primary email will be used. So we just created that customer. We know that we assigned them a primary email already, so we do not need to add their email address in here. We're going to say send later true, just for the sake of being able to check our work. I like to put terms due on receipt, and that just makes it a little bit easier. We don't need to add an invoice number. It will auto-generate that. Service date or product or services, right? You'll have a whole bunch of other products or services for you. We can just categorize this as sales for now. In the description, we don't need to get into. It's not super important for this example. The amount is, though. So when we look at the amount, we go to the new deal in stage. You should see amount here associated with the deal if you did put an amount associated with the deal. So deal revenue, amount is $100. So we'll add that information right there. And a lot of these things we don't really need to configure. We like to accept credit cards and bank transfers. Makes it a little bit easier to send you cash, send you some money, so that's good. And right, you would add your classes and all of the other ways that you would categorize your income inside of this create an invoice. A lot of those types of sorting and categorization methods you actually need to configure inside of QuickBooks. So if you wanted to add, right, an automation department, right, you couldn't just write in custom here, you couldn't just write automation and hope that it will create a new department inside of QuickBooks. Won't work. You'll certainly get an error there. So any classes or departments or objects or any other categorization that you want to do for your invoices, you have to do first in QuickBooks, and then you would select it here. Like, I don't have any classes to select from, but again, really not super important for this example, just giving you a little extra background there. So when you create this invoice, you're going to test it right here, and a business validation error has occurred while processing your request. Huh. Well, that is interesting. Let's refresh this page. Sometimes you get some of those weird errors. Can't say I've gotten that one before. All right, so in step 5 here, we're looking at the customer, and what we just did was actually, we just got kicked an error on this, and I was trying to figure out why. You're going to get a business validation error this time right here, and I just want to teach why this is happening. So a business validation error has occurred. A lot of times when you get something like that, it means that you're missing required information. And you can see here I'm not missing any required information, but if we do put the contact's email here inside of email and continue and retest, you'll see that it will succeed this time. So in my book, that means Zapier forgot to say that email is a required field. All right, so let's get into step 6. So with step 6, we need the invoice ID. Now we're actually going to send the invoice. So here we go. So the invoice ID is number 20, and the email, again, is going to be required. We're going to use the same email from step 2, and we could continue on that. And right now we'll test and continue. So let's do that. And now I'll pull open my email and show you exactly what that invoice looks like. And here we go. Did it come in yet? It did. So here we go. So if we switch over to QuickBooks, you can see that we cut that out. So if we look at our invoices, we'll refresh this page. So if we switch over to our invoices, you can see that we actually we created 3 different invoices here. 2 of these were from tests, and you see this one says viewed. So this is the one that was actually sent and actually sent over to me. You can see that it was viewed right here, and I popped it open in my email. So it looks exactly like any other invoice. The only thing here is that it gets sent in an email. Just reviewing here exactly what we're doing. We're going to look at a new deal, entering a new stage, and then we're going to find the contact and all the associated information with that contact, like their email and name. And then we're going to find the company, and we're going to find the company's name. And then we're going to find the contact and the company inside of, or really we're finding the contact inside of QuickBooks, whether or not that email exists. And if we don't find it, we're going to create a new contact. And then we're going to create an invoice for that contact and for that company. And then we're going to send the invoice. You could do this in one step if you wanted to. In the setup action, you could say send invoice later false, and that would immediately send the invoice. Some people like to break it up into 2 steps. I was just breaking it up into 2 steps to show you, every individual step here. And the last thing that I'll show you on this automation is going to be the auto updates message. So we're going to say, we just closed a new deal in Hubspot. And then I'm going to include the Hubspot deal name. And then I'm going to say checkbox. A new customer was found or created inside of QuickBooks. A new invoice was created and sent from QuickBooks for $100. Check the invoice right here. And we'll say invoice. Oh. Go back here. Create an invoice. We should have a link somewhere, I thought. Oh. We don't. So we're just going to include that PDF right there so that you can see it. We're going to send it as a bot. That bot we're just going to name, robot face is that robot face that you're so familiar with. The bot icon is going to be robot face, not the bot name. And the bot name is going to be, we'll say, invoice updater. And you always want to include a link to this Zap, just in case you want to add new things to it, or something goes wrong and you need to stop it. Always include the link to the Zap. And I always say no to auto-expanding links. It just takes up space that you don't really need to do. Actually, I'm going to put this file here. So the invoice PDF, I'm going to put in the file as opposed to in the body, because that's going to be like an upload. So we'll put that there, and we'll continue and test this. And I'll pop open Slack. It's probably taking a minute to upload the PDF. Usually doesn't take this long. So these 7 steps are going to be a great way to get your HubSpot connected to QuickBooks and hopefully help you stop repeating yourself here between QuickBooks and HubSpot. External timed out. All right, so I'm just going to take this PDF out of here. So I have a feeling the PDF is what is the problem. Do that. Continue. All right, so let's retest this right here. Boom. And there we go. But I messed up the robot face. So see how I had an extra space there? We'll continue, and I will test this again. And there you go. So we just closed a new deal today in HubSpot, tutorial example deal. New customer was found in QuickBooks, invoice amount being $100, and there's the link to the Zap. All right, well that just about does it for today. I hope this helped save you some time connecting your HubSpot to QuickBooks. Links and resources, as always, are in the description down below. And don't forget, keep the flow.